This is on. Good afternoon. I am Mary Jiang of the Oakland Rotary Club. Founded in 1908, we are the third oldest club of some 36,000 clubs in over 200 countries around the world. We are a diverse community of 270 business, professional, and community leaders who unite to serve our local and international communities through a commitment to service above self. Thank you for joining us today in the California Ballroom and online. For over 114 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests to our club meetings. Because COVID is still highly contagious, please continue to wear your mask while you're not eating or drinking to protect yourself and each other.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. For those attending online, if you are a visiting Rotarian or the guest of a Rotarian, please enter your name in the chat box located at the center at the bottom of the screen so that we can recognize you in a few minutes. If you have comments or want to ask a question of the speaker, please use the chat box. We recommend you view today's meeting using speaker view located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Now for our thought for the day, I welcome Rotarian David Kirsten. Will you please come?
Thank you, President Mary. I actually have two thoughts that are complements, and they go together from Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of England. The first is on the journey, the second is on the resolve. Every day you make progress, every step may be fruitful, yet there will stretch out before you an ever lengthening, ever ascending, ever improving path. You know you will never get to the end of the journey, but this, so far from discouraging, only adds to the joy and glory of the climb. And the second one is more Churchillian, as they say. Never give in, never give in, never, 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 in nothing great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense, never yield to force. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that inspiring positive thought. Okay, please join me in reciting the Rotary vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Guests are welcome to visit our club. Past District Governor and past President Ed Jelen, do we have any visiting Rotarians today?
Hello, President Mary. You know, last week I was very nervous that my job was hanging by a thread because we didn't have any visiting Rotarians. But today I am making up for it big time. First, we're going to have a more thorough introduction a little bit later in the program, but I do want to observe Rotary protocol and extend a hearty Oakland Rotary welcome to our District Governor, Savita. We are also pleased to have with us today from the Rotary Club of San Leandro, our Assistant Governor from Area 1, Sarah Linda Jackson. Sarah Linda, welcome. And we also have with us a past president and the current president of the Oakland Uptown Club. Please welcome Frank Paré. And we have another dignitary from the San Leandro Club, past president of that club, Diane Dorn. Diane, always nice to have you. And is Regina here? Is Regina Guillory? Why don't you start on this?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Diane Dorr, and I'm the Assistant Governor for Area 4A, Hayward, Castro Valley, and San Leandro. And I'll let Pam go.
I'm Tammy Hennigan with Pleasanton North Club, and I am Diane's partner in crime. I have the Valley Clubs, Pleasanton, Dublin, and Livermore.
And is Regina here? I guess not. Any other visiting Rotarians that I might have overlooked? All right, I hope I still have my job now, President Mary. I think I made up for last week.
All right, Ed, you made up and saved your job. Okay, thank you. Do we have Rotarians that have some guests that we? Mike, to there?
Keith Uriarty, and today it's my pleasure to have as my guest Nina Joyner, who is a candidate for Oakland City Council District 4.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I've been a guest here before and also a speaker here as well. So yeah, I just want to say what's up to Miss Pam up there. All right.
Okay. Do we have any visiting Rotarian online? Okay. All right. At this point, thank you for joining us today. We'd like to welcome all guests every day. You're welcome to join us any future club meetings or club event. Today, I have the privilege of inducting our 4th new members of the Oakland Rotary Club. Will Vivian Chan please join me at the lectern? Well, I am Vivian's sponsor, and so I will introduce Vivian with 2 interesting facts about her. Fact number 1, Vivian was born in China, and she came to the US with her husband in 2006, both of them attending graduate school at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. Vivian got her master in accounting and became a CPA. She owns a small accounting firm in Oakland. Vivian loves to travel with her family when tax season is over, which is October 15, she said. Fact number 2, you have heard about, people being high school sweetheart, college sweetheart, right? Well, Vivian told me that she met her husband in kindergarten. And they were classmates through elementary school, high school, and college. They finally got together to date in college. Got married after college, came to the US for grad school, as I mentioned. I hear her husband is somewhat of a genius for finishing his PhD program in physics in 3 years instead of a normal 5 to 7 years. Wow. Vivian, welcome to the Oakland Rotary Club. You're joining 270 Rotarians in our club and over 1.4 million Rotarians throughout the world. Vivian, I have something for you. I have your red badge, which signify your status as a new member. You'll also receive the 4-way test, which guides how we Rotarians do our daily life. It's number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will build goodwill and better friendship. 4, will be beneficial to all concerned. You will also receive in this bag of goodies, a Rotary Made Easy handbook, which provide useful information about the Rotary Club, and a roster with your 270 newest best friend. Here's your Rotary pin in here. And we also wear proudly, because the Rotary pin, wherever you go, people recognize, and you can attend any club meeting around the world. And finally, you get also our centennial book written by Rotarian Linda Hamilton, covering 100 years of Rotary history. Your commitment as a new member is to attend meetings in person or online, participate in club services activity, and contributing to the Rotary Foundation and the Oakland Rotary Endowment. It is my pleasure and privilege to induct you as the newest member of Oakland Rotary Club. Let's give Vivian a warm welcome. All right, so today we have an extremely guest that I like to introduce. I'm gonna mangle her last name, but I give it my best shot. District Governor Savita Vaidhynanathan. She served as president of the Rotary Club of Cupertino in 2013-14. She also held role as chair of World Service Committee, member of the club board and endowment foundation board. She organized lots of fundraising for the club, and she's a major donor to the Rotary Foundation. Savita served as advisor for projects in India, Kenya, and Mexico, and led a team of Rotarians on a tour to India on projects where she was the primary contact on global grants. She's a graduate of the District Leadership Academy. She served as the District Community Service Chair in 2019-2020. And then as DG-elect, she was the chair of the banquet that honored the first Rotary International president, woman president, Jennifer Jones. You know, if she doesn't have enough time for other things, she also is active in the local community. She served on the Cupertino City Council and as mayor of Cupertino in 2017. Let's give Savita a warm welcome.
Thank you, Oakland Rotary. That's very, very generous of you. Is it okay if I stand or does that look awful? Okay. Thank you for this nice little bench that you got for Mary. I'm using it. Thank you, President Mary Young, for wonderful.
The place is turned off and when I turn it on, it was go back to speaker. You're not.
They want me, Mary wants me to check if the mic is working. It is. Thank you. Thank you again. And thank you again for the warm welcome. And thank you, President Mary Young, for the wonderful warm introduction. It's my honor and privilege to serve as District Governor of District 5170 and to be at Oakland Rotary today. If I could have the slides, I will quickly go through them. I know I have only 10 minutes. Thank you so much. So I've already done that. And the very next slide, I want to say it's my honor and privilege to serve as district governor in the most historic year when we have the first woman president, Jennifer Jones. And it was my honor to be the banquet chair for her. Yes, she deserves an applause. And if you saw your Rotarian magazine, page 27, our district is represented. We have 2 photographs in that magazine in July from that banquet. Next slide, please. And our zone is represented by Vicky Pulitz, which is zone 2627. And that tiny orange sliver on the West Coast, that is 5170. It looks really tiny, but it's very, very big. And then the very next slide is a picture of me. And the reason I put that in is because your very own past district governor, Ed Jelen, was the chair of the nominating committee that nominated me to be in this role. So blame. And he did the interview by video before the term Zoom became a popular term in 2019, before COVID. I was in India and that's how we interviewed me. So thank you. Thank you so much, Ed. And the very next slide is your president, Mary. And why do I have that, all those 4 women in a row? Because I wanted to show the diversity in Rotary. I'm wearing this jacket to honor Mary. We embrace diversity. We embrace diversity in many forms. And I want all Rotarians to know that we welcome everyone. And Jennifer Jones is the embodiment of the person who has encouraged all of us to be empathetic and invite everyone to become a Rotarian. Next slide, please. I quickly want to look at some of these numbers. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, it says DEI committee. I'm the first district governor to bring this committee as an actual district committee. It will be there for 3 years. And then after that, the district governor who comes in after that, it's their responsibility to keep it going. What is DEI? It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it doesn't have to be only in membership. It has to be in the people that we serve, the service projects that we do. And I wouldn't be standing here if someone hadn't thought about that way back in Cupertino, and that's past District Governor Don Allen. And he said we should reflect the membership of the community we serve. And that's how I got involved. And then we started doing projects to serve the community, to look like the people in the club. It's back and forth. So that's what we try and do. And the district is now 3,781 members strong. That's how we started the year. I want to end my year with 4,000, including retention, because there will always be attrition. We have to stay above the 4,000 mark. And your president has said that she will make sure that she'll get us to 300, and she likes 8 at the end. So let's make that 308 for her, right? And where are we in the world when it comes to the Rotary Foundation donations? We are one of the highest in the world. And we raised over $1 million last year. We reached the $1 million mark for the first time last year. And we also had over $117,000 towards DRF. Rotary loves acronyms. That DRF means disaster relief funds. And for the first time, Rotary said any donations towards disaster will be included in your annual fund, which is how we were able to add that to our $1 million, and we crossed $1 million, 1.177. And towards polio, we had $350,000, and that matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation 2-to-1 is $1 million. So imagine your impact, over $1 million in annual funds and over $1 million towards polio just from this district. So thank you all so much for all that you did. And the very next slide shows your president's goal, which is $100,000. But I know she did, the previous president and Cess and Dudley both did a lot. And last year you did 171,000. So the next slide will show that Mary has a goal of 100,000, but I will say that maybe she'll do 208,000 or at least 188,000. How about that, Mary? Okay, a little more than 171 from last year. And keep in mind, whatever you give towards disaster relief does count towards what you give towards the annual fund. And it comes back in huge measures back as DDF. And for our new member, that's district designated funds, which means it comes back to your club from your district, and you get to do many, many projects all over the world. And from what I understand, you are already in 5 continents. You do projects in 5 continents. So that is absolutely amazing. You have 10 global grants open at any given time. And from what I understand now, you have 6 open. So you have room for 4 more. So I applaud you in the way you really assign all the wealth that you bring back to the club from the Rotary Foundation. Thank you so much to the Oakland Rotary. I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the district projects. That means my projects. I request you to do a little bit of fundraising. A district governor is allowed to have 1 project, but I actually am supporting 3. 1 is my own, and 2 of them are with the Interact and Faces of Hope. Next slide, please. So the project that I chose is to empower girls. Last year, President of Rotary International, Shekhar Mehta, said that he wants to take on empowering girls all over the world. And Jennifer Jones said she wants to continue with empowering girls. So I was wondering how we can make this happen, especially with Jennifer, Vicky, me, and Mary. All of us are women. How do we empower girls? We have Sarah Linda, Diane, and Tammy, all area governors, all women. We are all thinking how we can help girls. This is a very simple project. Girls lose 25% of the time they go to school when they have their periods. Doctors in the room, women in the room know how tough it is for a girl to go to school if she is not equipped with the hygiene. So this project is towards having equipment that actually manufactures the sanitary pads using local fibers, using the employment of local rural women, so they get employment, and they make those pads for the girls in those rural villages, so they get to go to school on those 5 days and their education is not interrupted. So that's going to be my project. You gave me goosebumps. So thank you for that support. And President Mary will give you more details as they emerge. And we'll have a thermometer on the Rotary district website to show how much we are raising for this project. And the other two projects are, I said, I'll support our Interact youth. We say we are in Rotary, we want to support Interact, we want to support our youth. But when they bring their projects to us, we just pass the cap around and then we say, thank you. I said, I will promote you in every club that I visit. So, and they are our kids. We have 7,000 volunteers in our Interact group in District 5170. They go to our Rotary International Convention. They are the only district that represents Interact at the Rotary Convention. And they said, we want to help youth who are suffering because they don't have food. So their project is food security. And I know that your club does projects in food security too. So please support our Interact youth when they visit your club. And Faces of Hope, Frank knows this very well. They're members of Oakland Uptown that support Faces of Hope, and it's a district project. All the clubs, as many clubs in the district that support this project get to send a member on the project to Faces of Hope. And if you take a young child with you, it really changes their life forever. So these are the three projects that I would really like you to consider, support any or all of them. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I'll go through the remaining slides. I talk about these interlinking puzzle pieces because membership, TRF, and public image go together. And I'm talking about public awareness meaning 3 districts together. And in the next slide, if I can show you where our district is, and I love to say this, Oakland to San Juan Bautista. This is how we are. And to our northeast is San Ramon and above, which is 5160, and then San Francisco is 5150. So these 3 districts are coming together to do public awareness campaign. And for the public awareness campaign, I know I'll take videos from your club, and we'll have a big push in the next few months, which tells the world what Rotary is, who we are, and what we do. Next slide, please. And we'll do this through the 4 priorities of our strategic plan. I've heard these words in your board meeting, which was very, very educational. How we can increase our impact, how we expand our reach, enhance participation engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. In my welcoming newsletter, this was something I sent so that you could use it as a Zoom screen. If you didn't open that newsletter, go back to July 1st, you'll find this. Next slide, please. And no matter what I say about the district, I know Rotary happens at the club. Thank you very much for all that you do for your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Savita, for all your thoughts. And we will be discussing with our committees to see how we can support your 3 projects. So at this point, today we have some Paul Harris Awards. A Paul Harris Fellow recognition is given in appreciation to anyone who contributes outright or cumulative a gift of $1,000 or more to the annual program fund, Polio Plus, or the humanitarian grants programs. The recognition consists of a certificate and a gold pin. Today, we have 4 brand new first-time Paul Harris recipients who has donated $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation. With the following 4 people, please come to the podium. Oakland Rotarian Endowment Trustee Ken Benson, Rotarian Christian Cook, Rotarian Pauline Fox, and President-elect Tom Limon. Savita. Savita, would you assist me in giving the pins to the recipient? If Peter can bring up the next slide, just the second slide. Okay, Ken Benson. Kristen Cook. Not here today. Pauline Fox. Tom Limon. Do we want to take a group picture? Okay, we have one announcement today. Robert Kidd.
Madam President, Madam District Governor, in February of this year, a bunch of hardy Rotarians began the epic hike. Started out in El Cerrito, up in, that's right, up in Wildcat Canyon. Since that time, we've hiked through the East Bay Hills, through Tilden, through Redwood Park, and coming up on August 27th, the final leg, a hike through Chabot Regional Park. 8:30 in the morning, meet at Chabot. RSVP by going to the club calendar. There's a little button you can push and join us. Look forward to it.
Okay, so let's welcome Tom Limon, who will introduce today's speaker.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we will be doing an interview style format. I'm pleased to introduce Pam Dorr. She's the Executive Director of the Community Land Trust Association of West Marin, also referred to as CLAM. And she's very passionate about developing innovative and replicable models for housing that builds stronger, more inclusive communities. Pam has a unique background in economic development and entrepreneurship. Some of her work in this area has been featured in a variety of national publications and on national TV as well. As a housing counselor with CLAM, she supports families on their journey to own or rent affordable homes and has experience with developing and overseeing affordable housing funding models, including accessory dwelling units, low-income housing tax credit properties, and scattered site development. Small cottage clusters or starter homes are her current fascination. So please welcome Pam Dorr. So thank you, Pam. You know, a lot of us here are very interested in housing, especially affordable housing. So I'm really curious to know sort of what's your origin housing or origin story around affordable housing?
I think I came to housing kind of in a funny way, like I almost feel emotional talking about it. I think my home burned down when I was a kid, and we, as a family of 4, we lived in a little apartment, you know, 1 room. And it was really a long journey, you know. I think even as a child, like thinking about having a home again was so important. Sorry. Didn't mean to. Anyway, so I think I came at it in a funny way. And also, you know, it isn't what I studied in school. It's not what I started out to do. I was a clothing designer, my first career. And I'm really good. I worked with Victoria's Secret for a long time, working on their cozy pajamas. And now I do housing, and it was a funny journey to get here, but I think I was always meant to be here.
And that wasn't planned at all. Like I had no idea about that origin. I was, and thank you for sharing that with us, and what a traumatic experience. And oftentimes those sorts of childhood traumas bring us to our work and bring us to try to make an impact and a difference. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanted to sort of relate that to, after Victoria's Secret, I guess you ended up in Greensboro, Alabama. Okay, and so, you did some interesting projects there. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So after working at Victoria's Secret, I started working at Baby Gap, doing their infant and newborn line, which I just loved. And one day I was sitting in my office under the Bay Bridge on Harrison, and I was just feeling like I got to do more with my life. And I ended up applying to be a fellow at Auburn University Rural Studio, which is probably the best design build program in the world. And it's really where they educate architects. They were looking for a couple of people in other design fields that might be able to help round out architects' background. So I ended up applying and going down to Alabama, and my goal was to be there a very short time. Growing up in Pacifica or Half Moon Bay, I had never really seen air conditioning or used it or had a car that had it. So going to the South was a little bit more of a challenge than I expected. So I went for a very short time, and I ended up staying 15 years. The work was really compelling, and even though my heart was here in the Bay Area, the work kept me there.
And so related to that work, we have a number of cyclists in the room and in our club. Could I just get a show of hands of who the cyclists are, or who rides bikes actively? All right. So tell us how can a bamboo bike revitalize a community?
So one of the things we started doing there was just asking youth what they wanted to learn. So we were supporting them to build housing in the community for their grandparents, and they would design and build that, and we would pay them to get a GED. So we got them off the couch. Their grandparents would drag them to us, and we would put them to work in the community. So housing was where we started, and then we started adding businesses they wanted to study. And manufacturing was something that was in the community we could train for on a really grassroots level. And what we ended up doing was going to someone's backyard, cutting down some bamboo and learning how to build bamboo bikes. And the kids harvested, manufactured, and then started teaching workshops for people from around the world, where they would fly into our small area, build their own bike, and then bike across country. And this past weekend, I was up at the Inverness Fair, and one of the women that was first in Alabama to build a bike and bike across country was there on her bike, and it was thrilling. So just funny how it comes full circle sometimes. So not intending to, we were just trying to figure out what to do with a nuisance in the community, which was golden bamboo, and we started building bikes from that.
And that tied in with I guess the main street in that town wasn't so strong. And what else did you do to leverage, your resources there?
Well, to build bamboo bikes, you kind of need a place to do that. And the buildings around in the downtown were abandoned and had been abandoned for a long time. And one by one, we created a business for each building. But first we had to renovate the buildings. And I worked with a group of prisoners from the local typically it was murderers who were in for life, but it was a minimum security prison where they could walk away. I would pick them up every morning and would go to the Mustang Oil gas station for breakfast. We always had those nice bologna biscuits. And then we went to work renovating buildings in the downtown, and we did them one by one. And we just moved right down the street. And one of the very first ones we did was a bike shop. And then across the street, we built a pie shop so people could have somewhere good to eat as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. People who work in the nonprofit sector are very creative. They're entrepreneurs. They squeeze every little thing they can, and it's just amazing to hear, your experience with that. With your current position role with CLAM, what sort of impact do you want to make in housing and afford? And if you could even describe to the group what a community land trust is, what might be helpful too.
So I work for the Community Land Trust Association in West Marin. It's CLAM, and the org's been around 22 years. They won the exclusive negotiating agreement to rebuild a Coast Guard base out in West Marin that had been decommissioned. So it was officers' housing. So building that into 51 units of affordable housing. So I've come in at a really unusual time with CLAM, where CLAM has been pretty successful and completed about 49 units already of affordable housing in the community. They'll have 51 through the Coast Guard base, and then trying to help set the direction going forward with the strategic plan of how we're going to reproduce housing more effectively and less costly is kind of where I come in. And a community land trust in general kind of has a three-part board. Like most nonprofits, we want to have people that receive our services on the board. So a third of the board seats are people who live in our homes or rent homes from us. Another third are people with maybe a specialty, like realtors, bankers, someone that can help us with technical aspects of what we do in housing. And then a third from the local community. So that's kind of how a community land trust works. Community land trusts are a little different. We don't do income-based housing, so housing that is just based on someone's income. We do affordable housing, which means you have to earn enough to be able to live in it, whether you own it or rent it, but you also have to have a income that's capped, in that you can't have too much income to receive that housing. So it's kind of a funny thing, the difference between income-based housing and affordable housing. So we do affordable, and typically we work in a special way called PAH, permanently affordable housing. So it's housing that never sunsets. It's housing that will remain deed restricted in perpetuity. And the other thing that's unique about the land trust is that the land always remains in community control, and then people can buy or rent the improvements above the land, and think of it as a condo or a house or apartment above the land can be bought or sold. So all the land always remains in the community, and it's bifurcated, where the land remains with the land trust and an owner or renter pays a small fee to the land trust for that stewardship.
No, that's exciting. And just to also give people context, West Marin, if you could put it, sort of names some boundaries, that might be helpful too.
Sure. So we work in the villages around Tomales Bay, so Point Reyes Station, Inverness. We can go as high as Tomales and down as far as Stinson. We're also part of the West Marin Housing Collaborative of other housing organizations. So we partner with everybody that will partner with us. So we're always looking to do more with less.
Yeah, and in Oakland's very urban. We have a lot of housing insecurity, a lot of people sleeping on the streets. When I've ridden my bike through West Marin, I don't necessarily see that, but could you tell us a little bit more about sort of the housing insecurity that you find in West Marin?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. It's so different. In West Marin, we have ghost neighborhoods where when I first moved up there in January to take the position, I lived in a neighborhood and there were only two of us, a woman across the street and myself. The rest of the neighborhood was all short-term rentals. So people might come and go, but typically they were second homes that were unused. So there was no one to borrow a cup of sugar from and no one to see on a walk in the morning. It was all empty homes. So it was a community built of second home owners. And typically it's pretty vacant most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's happened up in Mendocino, these sort of destination, beautiful coastline. where the local workers don't have a place to live. So what's the, you have Cowgirl Creamery, you have restaurants. How are those workers, where are they living? Where are they?
Yeah,
how are they getting to
so
work?
last Friday, we did a lottery of people that wanted to live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the downtown. And the person that was selected was driving in from Pinole. So she was driving an hour each direction. And she's able to move her family to Point Reyes where she works full time and to save all that wear and tear on the environment that happens, but also give her family a better quality of life by walking to work and walking to school for her family. So it's pretty exceptional when you see that. But like most of us, some of us can live in the community because it's affordable, and some of us are pushed further and further out. So lots of folks are going to places where they can afford, and it's not near where their jobs are, where the schools are, where they want to be, where their families are.
And then one of the things we discussed prior to this meeting was around aging in place. And can you tell us a little bit more about what that means to you?
Sure. So a lot of us are getting older, myself included. I just hit 60. And in the community, we have an aging population in West Marin. And we've had a lot of requests from people that want to stay in the community in their forever home, but are struggling with maintenance of that home. Also, they may have tenants that are living in other buildings on the property and they need some care. The buildings themselves need care. So there's some stewardship needed. So one of our first projects was to help people stay in the community. So at a discounted price, we could buy the home ahead of time and help the person stay in the community in her lifetime, and then support the tenants on our property to stay there as well. So aging in place is something that we do. Another one is just planned giving. If somebody wants to write CLAM into their will, we can help their family by buying the home, and that family member that they want to leave an inheritance to can get that income. The most recent one was $1 million house. They're allowing us to buy at $500,000. And we pay their estate $500,000. So their heirs receive that income. And there's a unit of housing that's produced from that that's lower cost than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and I think I know a lot of people in the club, but my background is also in nonprofit and affordable housing, working for the Unity Council in Oakland for 10 years, then being on the Planning Commission for the past 6 years. And about 2 years ago, I changed positions. So I sort of put the commercial real estate brokerage on hold, and as my role as a broker. And I started working for a statewide housing coalition. And that really came from being on the Planning Commission, approving thousands of units in Oakland, which we need, but seeing that these housing units cost between $600,000, and one apartment cost between $600,000 and $800,000. And this was 4 or 5 years ago. And so it clicked that we're not going to build our way out of this housing crisis. There need to be alternatives. And so 2 years ago, I became the first employee and executive director of the Casita Coalition, which promotes small housing and removes barriers to small housing, policy barriers, financial barriers at the national level. And so we've been very active in building a stronger coalition and looking at other ways to address this affordable housing crisis. And, could you describe, your interest in ADUs and other types of housing?
So I think, like a lot of us, finding ways for our families to stay close is crucial, but also for us to age in place. And an accessory dwelling unit is an opportunity to do that. California has really become a leader of passing new statewide legislation that can allow it. That doesn't mean it's easy to do or that a lot of us are doing it, but it's a way to create more housing with less physical density. You don't see a lot of homes in an unused backyard. Typically, it's kind of a lighter touch in terms of what we see with like a large apartment complex. I know when I moved back to the Bay Area from Alabama, I needed a place to live. And what I looked for was a house that also had a rental unit. I didn't want to live alone, so I was looking for something that would work. And recently I just completed a garage conversion where I converted my garage so it no longer houses my car or my crap that I have a tendency to store, but instead is now housing a person. And I did that work with my 80-year-old aunt and uncle who love to do projects too. So the three of us were like the hands-on team to do that. And it was pretty interesting. So I think accessory dwelling units have been really interesting from that standpoint. When I first moved back, I was doing low-income housing tax credit projects for special needs. And those are typically big apartment complexes that take 6 to 7 years to complete through the entitlement process and then lease up. So they're complex, and a lot of us have those in our neighborhoods, but maybe don't really like living next to those. And I wanted to do something a little different. So I joined an East Palo Alto and Menlo Park-based nonprofit building accessory dwelling units in the backyard. We raised some money and started building those for folks that were in a floodplain. So raising them out of the floodplain and creating sustainability for their family long-term by building 800 to 1,200 or 800 to 1,000 square foot backyard homes, and really got into it. I of course joined Concita Coalition right at the beginning. And then the state laws kind of started to relax to make that easier. And now with CLAM, what I'm able to do is just take those smaller homes and find new ways to start to build those more rapidly to make more impact.
Yeah, and just to give everyone some context, an accessory dwelling unit is basically a small home, and it could be part of a garage or it could be a basement conversion. But on the very low end, it could cost $100,000. And on the high end, it could cost, $500,000, $600,000 for something very custom. And that's a possible solution because the laws now allow you to do that in your home, in pretty much almost every home, unless you're in a very severe high fire zone. So there might be some other restrictions, but really this is an option that people can do, and apartment owners can also do, convert unused space, dead space, storage, garages. So it's a really interesting option. And so what makes you hopeful about the work in West Marin?
I think there's a couple of things. I think one is that it's so highly supported. The community wants to see smaller homes for people that work in the community. So there's less pressure for people to move away. And the displacement that I think lower income families are feeling, it's even more dramatic. We're seeing a big exodus from our cities, especially during COVID. And accessory dwelling units can be a way to start to retain our community and community fabric, and getting people to walk to work again or walk to school again. That's such a good feeling. So there's a lot of community support for that. There's also kind of a backlash to these big apartment complexes. And when we look at starter homes, having a small neighborhood of homes people could own or rent almost feels better than being next to a big apartment complex if it can hold the same amount of people. And so the new state law, I follow AB 803. It's thrilling. And it's thrilling for a really important reason. Instead of having these big complexes, you can start to have clusters of small homes that serve people in a different way. And I think of a small home being like an 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath or smaller, but smaller homes, just modest, affordable, something most working families could afford to buy and live in comfortably for their lifetime.
And then in West Marin, I know, people are resistant to change in general, but this is one of the most beautiful parts of California where you are. And so how are people sort of adopting this new sort of way of using their land and home?
I think for a lot of us, it's going to be a mix. Some people want to have a caretaker on the property, and using the backyard for that makes a lot of sense. Some people want to create space for more family. Some people just don't want to live alone. I think I was reading a statistic from the Area Agency on Aging that said a senior, typically women living alone, women have a tendency to live longer, so they can be Rotarians longer, which is thrilling. But it's equivalent, living alone is equivalent to smoking about 17 cigarettes a day, and the health on your health and I don't know if that's a true statistic. I thought it was pretty fascinating when I read it. I know during the pandemic, because I had a little unit in my backyard with a single mom and daughter, there were a lot more dance parties in my yard from a social distance, and we had a lot more fun. We did ice cream socials for our neighborhood, making up some ice cream for fun. And I just think there's so much opportunity to live more thoughtfully together than alone. And a lot of us have kind of outgrown a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home and might need a different type of setup. Yeah.
And do we have any questions from the audience? I don't see any online yet. But also, how can Rotarians help as we get to that?
So I think the question is, how could Rotarians help? You already are. You're here. You're invested in your communities. Oakland CLT or Oak CLT has been one of the ones I've followed from the beginning. They're just vibrant and amazingly successful in preserving affordable housing, which I think is something we all want to do. And partnering in any community makes such a difference. I think there are so many opportunities. You can even, we think of money being used one time, we give it as an organization or as a funder, we give it. How can that money reproduce and go on to help, like a little revolving loan fund to build a backyard home? And every year it gets paid back through the rents and you build another one. And it's really neat to see how replication of models can really make a big difference.
Okay, do we have another question? Mike?
Hi. Within the last several past Sundays, I was able to attend my first ride with an organization, charitable organization that started in San Rafael. It's now international. That takes low-income, often inner-city children on their sometimes their first bike rides, started by an amazing woman named Marilyn Harriman. It's called Trips for Kids, and I'm wondering whether your organization has been able to partner at all with Trips for Kids, or if not, would be interested in that. I'm guessing you've heard of Trips for Kids, being from Marin.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked. So we have not yet partnered with Trips for Kids, and we should. Thank you for that suggestion. It's perfect. When I first moved back, a lot of the folks that were flying down to Alabama to help us create bikes and bike shops and buildings was the University of Kansas industrial design and architecture students. And so as soon as I moved back to the Bay Area, we went to East Palo Alto and we built a volunteer bike shop, which has really grown. And we started going out and just doing trips on bikes. And it makes such a difference. The first time they came out to the beach, and it was one of the first times a lot of people had even left East Palo Alto. And it was such a big difference to get out on a bike and try that. So thank you. I should be doing that. And I appreciate it. It's good to hear.
Okay, final question.
Hi, my name is Sean Calvin. I actually happen to be on a board of one of those affordable housing development companies that does build the large apartments. But I know that in that work, we often have waiting lists to get into those properties that can be up to 10 years long. Could you talk a little bit about what the process is for getting folks into some of these smaller units? Are they private? Is it a similar process?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think a lot of us in the affordable housing space have really struggled with wait lists. So recently CLAM ended our 10-year wait list where you'd get on and never move. And instead we're doing an opportunity specific wait list. So we're not using old information to judge if somebody would be right for this opportunity. So we publish it, and we publish it pretty widely. So people that are unlikely to apply for that opportunity do. And then we work with them to get a qualified application completed. And then we do a lottery system of the qualified applicants. And we have another organization pull a name from a hat, and we do a couple names in case somebody falls out of that realm. So we try and do kind of a transparent way to select. I'm also doing a selection process coming up real quick for the Bolinas Community Land Trust. So it's kind of difficult in a small land trust. You don't want the appearance of playing favorites of who you select. So they're having another organization, in this case, CLAM, come in and help select that family. So it's a little bit more transparent. So I appreciate you saying that. I think the one concern a lot of us have in affordable housing is who gets to live there and what are the rules and why are they so difficult and what happens to families that might have mixed documentation status. And so as we're working on that Coast Guard site, we're really being thoughtful about how to include people from the local community in that housing and not exclude them from that housing. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but time doesn't permit for more Q&A, but I'm sure Pam would be happy to answer your question after the meeting. Okay, well, Pam, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Education is my area of focus for this year. The Rotary Club of Oakland is proud to partner with Oakland Promise to offer 8 $10,000 scholarship annually, along with mentorship by Rotarians. We are proud to support many of the first in their family to attend college. In recognition of your presentation today, Oakland Rotary will make a donation in your name to the Oakland Promise to support this kindergarten to college program for every child in our city. Thank you. Does any Rotarian have any celebration or special event or something to share? Okay, Pat Williams. Somebody give a mic to her.
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize someone very special in our club. For the spring 2020 gala, Teresa Wyand donated a custom quilt, and I wound up being the lucky winner of that item. So Teresa let me choose a design that wound up being pretty complicated and any size. So I said, well, I'd like it to fit a queen size bed. So I wound up in June of this year being delivered this exquisite quilt. So I want to recognize Teresa for her generosity and her artistry. And I have to tell you, if you ever have the chance to get one of Teresa's quilts, you better jump on it.
Lorna, give the mic to Lorna.
Oh,
right back.
I just want to say, I'd like to ring the bell in honor of our district governor, Savita. You're inspirational. I enjoyed your comments and so glad to see a woman as a district governor in this year.
Yeah. I also like to ring a bell in honor of District Governor Savita. Anybody else? Oh, Barbara, you give a mic to Barbara.
I'd like to ring the bell for Savita and also Jennifer Jones and Mary Chiang.
Just so that Savita know what a bell ringer is. A bell ringer is a generous tax deductible donation of $100 to our Oakland Rotary Endowment. So when you ring the bell, raise your hand and it contributes to our foundation and everybody feels good about it. So thank you. Peter Share, so they need ring bell and online? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so Joycey Mack just rang the bell for my dear friend, who I miss very much. She's talking about Georgia Richardson.
Georgia Richardson.
I miss her too.
Okay. Ken Benson for Georgia Richardson. For Georgia? Okay. All right. Thank you for your generosity. CJ Hurstfield, could you tell us about next week's speaker? Give her a mic.
Yes.
Thank you, President Mary. So many of you may know that I was a film major and I'm currently now a documentary film critic. So I particularly appreciate filmmakers whose subjects as well as their crews represent diversity. And that happens to be the specialty of next week's speaker, my friend C.B. Smith-Dahl. She's a filmmaker, she's an Academy Award nominated camera operator, and she's an Oaklander. She's the co-founder of Together Pictures, and her topic will be listening by seeing. Since 1996, CB has mentored hundreds of diverse young people while teaching them filmmaking skills. You will love it. So hope to see you next week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David, for the thought for the day. Vivian for joining our club today. DJ Savita for sharing her goals and objectives and handing out the Paul Harris pin. Robert for the hype. Are we okay? Robert for the hiking announcement, Tom for introducing this week's speaker, Pam Dorr for the wonderful presentation, and the production team for managing the meeting except for the sound. I look forward to seeing everyone at next week's meeting in person and online. So share, everybody. That means thank you. This meeting is adjourned.